Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Di, and today I will be sharing with you another diary entry. So for this one, I think we're going to do some wintry reads. I think that's going to be the theme for this one. And so this one is actually going to carry forward another book from a previous diary entry. I had started talking about this particular book in the other diary entry, which was like winter romances or Christmas romances, and things didn't go as planned with that one. So I'm carrying this book forward for this diary entry. And the book that I am going to be talking to you about right now is The Highland Hearts Holiday Bookshop by Tricia O'Malley. So this one is about a woman who has a boyfriend, kind of works at a job, and is just kind of living day to day, isn't really like enthusiastic about anything going on in her life. And then something happens while she's on the job. And in the way that things are kind of dealt with in the situation and how her boyfriend reacts to everything, she kind of gets really like discouraged about life and is just like, not feeling really great about it. But then she gets word that her aunt has passed away and has left her a bookstore in Scotland as her inheritance. And so she thinks, you know what? This might be the perfect opportunity to kind of restart my life. And so she quits her job, she dumps her boyfriend, and she heads off to Scotland to run this bookstore. But there's something about this bookstore that she doesn't quite know about. And so we kind of follow her, kind of learning about the bookstore and kind of just getting her feet under her in like owning a business for the first time and living in a new country for the first time, meeting new people and figuring out what the heck is going on with this bookstore and what the patrons are actually asking for. And so I had started this one, like I said, for the previous vlog that I had done. And I had listened to about 5 chapters at the point in time where I talked about this book on that vlog. And I'll just kind of reiterate what I said there so that you don't actually have to go back to that vlog. But if you're interested in the romances that I was reading for that vlog, I'll link it either in the cards or in the description box below. But in any case, I'm listening to this one on audio. I'm borrowing a copy of it from Hoopla through my library. And I wasn't too impressed when I had finished my first kind of session with this book. So it is dual narrated, and the book is dual POV. Now, we have our American woman and our Scottish male, and the Scottish male definitely has an accent, and it's quite nice to listen to. But I will say that the narration itself on a whole, from both narrators, is not very good. Like when they have to get out of character to voice other characters, that's when I notice it the most, because the male narrator does not do a very good job with a female voice. And the female character, she does a much better job with the male voice. But there's just something that I don't like about how she's narrating the female. And so it's kind of been one of those not so great kind of experiences. But I can live with that. The story with my first session on this book, I wasn't too impressed with it either, because like I said, not so great things are happening to our female character in the beginning. Her boyfriend is just someone you just want to kick in the rear. And how the situation was handled with what had happened at work wasn't done very well either. And so there's that. And then she gets to Scotland and everything's kind of new and fun and exciting. And she meets this guy. And she's kind of clumsy. And she kind of has a klutz introduction with him. And his kind of first kind of thought about her is in a sexual way. And like when I say in a sexual way, I mean like he visualizes her like basically servicing him, to put it nicely. And that did not leave a very good first impression on me. I kind of wanted to DNF right there and then. But I thought, you know what? Probably being a little bit hasty. I don't know why this, like, character is even written in that way. But I was kind of disappointed for this kind of thought to be coming from a woman's hand, right? And so I decided to go ahead and give it one more shot because I thought, you know what? Nothing's really happened up until the point that I had gotten to. Like, she had just gotten to Scotland. She had this klutz reaction or introduction with this dude. And, like, at that point, like, we didn't even know, like, anything about the bookshop. She had basically just gotten there. And so I was like, I'll give it one more shot. I'll have one more session with it. Because I was listening to it on audio, I normally listen to my audiobooks during lunch break when I'm working throughout the week. And so I thought I'll listen to it for one more lunch break and then I'll decide after that. And so things didn't go as planned. I actually had to return the book because I ran out of time. I had borrowed it really early in December and thought I would have gotten to it a lot faster than I did. Ended up running out of time, and so I had to kind of wait and see because circumstances with my Hoopla borrows and the number of borrows I had left and some other things that I was reading concurrently at the time. And so I finally reborrowed a copy of the audiobook from Hoopla. I thought about switching to the ebook, but I thought, you know what? I'm just going to continue with the audiobook because at the time that I was kind of deciding, I was already reading a book, and so with my eyes. And so I normally don't like to have two of the same type of media. So I'll usually have one like book, whether it be an ebook or physical book, manga, to read, and then I'll have an audiobook for lunchtime. And so since I had already had a book going, I thought I'll just reborrow the audiobook. And so I spent my lunch break listening to it again, continuing with the story. The bookstore is awfully interesting, and what's going on with it, I'm enjoying. The relationship that's kind of blooming between our male and female characters, it's okay. I'm not enjoying it all that much. But in the sense of what's going on, I don't like feel like at this point it's like mostly about their relationship. I feel like there's a lot about this bookstore that she's, you know, trying to figure out. She's getting off the ground and like, you know, becoming part of the society there and things like that. And so I feel like that part of it is a bigger piece of the story for me right now. And even though I'm still not impressed with our male character because, again, he had another kind of visualization of her in the bedroom in his head, I'm kind of letting it go in one ear and out the other, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, other than that whole thing, I am really enjoying all of the other characters that we've met. There's a bunch of older ladies that have a book club that kind of meet at the bookstore, and they're kind of the first people that she meets as like patrons. And they're really fun and interesting, and they have a title for themselves, which I won't repeat here because there is a swear word in there. But I enjoy them, especially their enthusiasm with what's going on with the bookstore. And so, yeah, it's definitely got a little bit of a kind of supernatural, kind of fantastical element to it as well, which I'm also really enjoying. And so I will be continuing with this one probably till I finish. Right now, where I'm at, I'm about 67% done with this book. So I'm enjoying it enough that I think I'm going to be able to finish this one. And yeah, so I just wanted to come on here and start this vlog and let you know kind of what the plan is, where I was at with the reading and things like that. And I think basically this diary entry is going to contain like winter kind of stories, kind of winter themed stories. Because I've got this one, which is kind of a wintry romance. It's not really Christmas, but it's happening kind of close to, I guess. But I would consider it more wintry. And then there's a couple of other books that I would like to read that kind of also have a wintry thing going on with it. So I think that's kind of a good theme to stick to with this one. At least that's my intention. We'll see if things can remain on track. But that's pretty much all I have for you today. So I think I will leave you here and chat with you later. So I finished Highland Heart's Holiday Bookshop, and I will say that I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. So I ended up having a good chunk of time to listen to this one day after work, and that like whole section kind of really pulled me in. We had a lot more things happening at the shop. There was like a shop window decorating contest going on, which I thought was kind of odd. But I guess it was more of a facility to kind of get our male and female characters closer, I guess. But I did really enjoy like the whole concept of what's being called the Highland Hearts Holiday Special. I did enjoy that. And I think for me, the reason why this one ended up 3 stars was because there wasn't a lot that happened with the Highland Hearts Holiday Special, or the Highland Hearts Special. I can't even remember what exactly it's called. But I think if this story had revolved more about that and following her, like helping more people using that, this story would have been a lot more interesting to me. As it was, the romance between our 2 characters was kind of mediocre to me. Like I said, I didn't have the greatest first impression of our male character. You do kind of understand a little bit why he kind of latches on to her like he did, but I didn't feel like the explanation for that was good enough to dissuade how I felt about him with the first impression that I got, and even the second impression that I got. And so, yeah, I enjoyed this one. I will say I definitely enjoyed the environment. I just wish we had more time with her actually, doing the things that she was doing with the bookstore. More time with the book club ladies, because I do find them quite adorable. And just like more time with her kind of, I guess, growing in her own. I feel like she jumped from one relationship right into this one. And even though she made a big move and, she's like kind of making her way on her own, this whole like thing with her just like moving to Scotland, meeting this guy, like getting into this relationship felt really fast. And so, yeah, there was that too. But I did enjoy that, our story takes place in Scotland. I enjoyed the accent. I feel like if this was part of a larger series that maybe happened in the town, I would be interested in reading more because I did like the environment that this story took place in. And I would love to see more like Highland Hearts specials being done because I really enjoyed that portion of the story. And so, yeah, I actually do have another book by this author sitting on my shelves. It was something that I had seen when we were at the bookstore kind of browsing. It was right kind of after kind of the summertime. And I think it has to do with like a witch or something like that. I think it's called Life's a Witch, actually. And I meant to read it in October, and I just never got around to it. And I didn't realize that the author of this book was the same as that one. I also recently heard my friend Lee from Dark Roots Creations talk about a book by this author, I believe. And it sounds like the book club ladies were in that one. If I'm not mistaken, I heard her mention their book club name. So I'm kind of wondering if like all of the books that this author writes might be in the same town and we might be able to see some characters from other books and things like that. So I'll be interested to explore that later in the future. But for right now, this one ended up being a 3-star. It was an entertaining read. Like I said, I enjoyed the narrators, like accents and things like that. But the narrators themselves, I didn't really enjoy because I do feel like they got out of character quite a bit. And I didn't like the way that the male narrator kind of narrated the female character. It did sound kind of hilarious, actually. You could like totally tell that it was a dude trying to imitate a woman's voice, and it came off very stereotypical and kind of adolescent if I'm kind of getting my thought through. It just didn't sound right. It kind of sounded like how an adolescent boy would be talking or like relaying what he had heard from like a female classmate or something. You know how they like fake voices when they're that age and things like that. It kind of sounded like that. So I didn't quite care for that. But overall, it was an okay read, and I'll be interested to check out more work by this author in the future. So since I finished that one, I definitely needed another audiobook, and my plans are getting derailed yet again. 2026 is throwing me some curveballs, not only in my reading, but in life as well. We're not going to get into it at this time, but my reading has been derailed for this diary entry. So I had kind of thought that this was going to be kind of wintry type reads. And for the most part, this next one is, but the library holds that I had put on hold last year that said that it was going to take months to get to me ended up getting to me super quick. So I got this particular one first. And so I'll talk to you about that now, and then I'll tell you what happened when I'm done telling you about this book. But the library hold that came through, which I was kind of hoping would come through in February, being as it said it was going to take a few months, was Fake Skating by Lynn Painter. So this book is kind of a childhood sweethearts second chance romance featuring hockey. And so we're kind of following this pair. They grew up together. He lives in her mother's hometown, and her family comes to town, I guess, every summer to be around family. And her grandfather was this like really famous hockey player. And so these two kids would reconnect every summer. And then one summer, her family had a falling out, and things just kind of kept breaking in their like relationship since then. Several things had happened, and they just kind of started drifting apart from each other. And she ended up actually never coming back to the hometown after that incident with her family and the big blowout. And so now it's been several years. They're both in high school, and she's moving back to town. Her parents got divorced. Her mom's moving back to her hometown, and they're actually coming back at winter, and she's never like enjoyed like the bitter cold, and it's super cold when they come back. And she comes back and she's kind of nervous about being back because of what had happened with her grandfather, and their relationship, even though they were pretty close when she was younger, hasn't been the same since. So she's not quite sure how this is all going to work, what it's going to feel like. But, you know, she's just trying to get by day to day. And so we kind of follow her kind of adjusting to life in this town that she used to visit regularly, kind of reconnecting with people that she used to know. And then the fact that this guy that she was really close with and kind of had a romance with towards the end there is now a pretty famous hockey player himself in town, and has a nickname that people call him, and he's really popular. And so she's kind of dealing with all of that when things kind of happen, and they end up being forced to fake date each other due to circumstances that happen with his reputation. And so I had thought this one was entertaining. I will say at this point now, I'm about 80% done with the book. It's going by pretty quick, and I'm actually really enjoying it. It is one of those kind of high school romance stories that is really sweet. And you've got like history with the characters because it tells you in like flashbacks and things, like things that they did, and, you know, kind of the things that had happened in the time that they were apart. And there's a little bit of a miscommunication. I feel like, I'm not quite sure, but I feel like there's a little bit of a miscommunication going on with kind of the reason why they drifted apart, and kind of a reason why our male characters has a little bit of a grudge against their female character. But I am really enjoying their scenes together, and I do feel like it's kind of one of those things that is like a second chance, because even though they didn't like properly establish a relationship before all of this stuff went down, it does feel like, you know, the rekindling of feelings and them actually properly getting to be a couple, and all of everything, their history is like coming back at them. And so, yeah, it is super cute. It's one of those like romances that is kind of like so cute that you're just like, oh my gosh, kind of feelings. I do feel like I'm really close to like the kind of third act, maybe breakup scene. I feel like I'm going to be told everything that is the reason why there's hard feelings about when they had drifted away from each other. I feel like I'm going to be told like what had happened in her life while she was away, because I feel like there are lots of things that need to be like let out into the open and just haven't really been shared with me at this point. Like little by little, I'm getting little pieces and things like that. But I feel like the the gates are opening and the flood's going to come through, and I'm going to get every piece soon. But so far, I'm really enjoying the author's writing style. Very easy to kind of get into the story. I'm listening to this one on audio. It is dual narrated, and I'm enjoying both narrators. They're staying in like their characters. I'm enjoying even the way the male narrator is narrating their female character. It's not coming off so cheesy or stereotypical, and it's much more enjoyable for me than Holiday Hearts book. Holiday Hearts, what? Highland Hearts Holiday Bookshop. And so, yeah. So it shouldn't take me too much longer to finish this one, and I'm looking forward to it. I know that this author wrote another book that I think I have seen around, something about the movies, something in the movies or something like that. So I'd probably be interested in checking that one out if this one goes the way I think it's going to go, because I will tell you that I have been thinking about what's been going on in this story for quite a bit when I'm not reading it. So that's a good thing. It's a good sign. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this one all ends up. So that's what's going on with that. As far as more curveballs, these other books that I had put on hold back in December that said that it was going to take like 2 or 3 months to get to me, which I thought would have been perfect timing for me to be reading these books, because it would put it in like the end of March, maybe early April. Yeah, they got released to me already. So I've got 2 more books available for me from the library. And so those are going to be the 2 other books that I'm going to be reading for this diary entry. Unfortunately, neither of them are set in the wintertime, at least as far as the covers of the books go. So I think this one's just going to be full of romance novels, because those are romance novels. And so, yeah, I'm starting off this year with unexpected twists and turns. I'm definitely reading a lot more romance novels than I have been in probably my entire life at the beginning of this year. So maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. I will say that, I haven't had really great reads over the last few years. Again, another year went by and I didn't give a novel a 5-star. So, maybe I should dip my toes into other areas. I don't know. Maybe in my old age now, I'm needing more like fluffy things to read instead of dark and twisty. I don't know, but I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm going to go with the flow, because what can you do when curveballs are thrown at you? So we'll see how that goes. But for right now, I am really enjoying Fake Skating, and I look forward to telling you what I think when I check in with you later. So I finished Fake Skating, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was super cute. I definitely related with our character's problems that she was having with her father, and some of the situations that played out in that regard. I just thought this was really cute. The ending was very nice, kind of wrapped everything up, gave that happily ever after. I do kind of wish there was a little bit of retribution for one of the characters, if you will. But all in all, I really, really enjoyed this one. And I'm struggling to give it a rating because I'm not quite sure this is 5-star material for me. I definitely was thinking about it when I wasn't reading the book, which tends to be 5-star feelings. However, I didn't actually pick it up when I wasn't reading it. And that's usually something that's like, okay, this is for sure 5 stars. Like, the last time I had a 5-star feeling, I was every single moment that I could wanting to read the book, I did. I went ahead and read that book. And so with me not actually doing that, I don't think this is 5 stars, but I have given it a 4.5 star rating. I really, really enjoyed this one. And I felt like the way things played out didn't bother me very much, which is also a good sign, because usually when it comes to like teen romance and teen like issues, I tend to have a little bit less patience when it comes to the like beating around the bush, if you will say, if you know what I mean. Because they tend not to like get their feelings out right away, right? But I feel like because our two characters have known each other for a good portion of their lives, they were able to communicate very well, even though there kind of was a little bit of, I wouldn't say miscommunication, but a little bit of like non-communicating. Kind of because one character thought, well, they know what they did, right? And even though one of the issues that kind of was the reason why they drifted apart when they were younger was to do with something that was a communication issue. It wasn't as bad as it could have been. And so I really, really enjoyed this one. So what I've done is I've rated it 4.5 stars. On Goodreads, I have rated it 5 stars because I do rate up, because Goodreads does not do half stars. But if you see my rating on Storygraph, it is at a 4.5. If this story sticks with me for a bit, then I'll go ahead and raise that to 5 stars. But I don't think I have a 5-star read with this one. It's close. It's close. I really, really enjoyed this one. And so, yeah. Very happy to have a book that I really, really enjoyed here at the beginning of the year. It's probably the one I've enjoyed the most so far of all of the books that I've read so far this year. So because I finished that one, and I also finished the other book that I was reading for the previous diary entry that I'm doing, I went ahead and started 2 new books. And I had told you that 2026 is throwing me curveballs. And so both of these books were library holds that I was told was going to take months to get to me when I put them on hold in December. And it didn't even take like 3 weeks. So both of these books I had intended on reading a little bit later in the year, and they both came to me now. So they're not part of the wintry reads, so that whole like thought is going out the window here. They're not wintry at all, in fact. So let me just tell you what I am currently reading. I am currently reading My Best Friend's Honeymoon by Meryl Wilsner. So this is the author of Mistakes Were Made, which I read, I believe, in 2025, which is a sapphic romance with an age gap. And I enjoyed that one. And so I had heard somebody talking about this particular one in December. And I thought, oh, let me go check it out. I have been really bad about making sure I notate who I'm hearing things from. So in 2026, I have gone ahead and made a list so that every time I hear about a book, I can definitively know who I heard about that book from, what year I heard about that book, and a little bit about what drew me to want to possibly read that. So hopefully I'll be able to let you guys know who I heard about books from in the future, because I've been very bad at that. But it was definitely somebody I was watching a video from on YouTube, and I had not known that Meryl Wilsner had released another book. But this one is opening up with Ginny, who is non-binary, and they have been in love with their best friend since they were teens. The only problem is the best friend, her name is Elsie, is engaged to be married. And Elsie's been engaged for a year and a half, has not moved on any of the wedding planning or anything like that. So her fiance takes it upon himself to go ahead and take that off her plate, plan the wedding, and get all of the wedding invitations out, reserve the venue, and do everything, even booked a honeymoon. The only problem is he didn't tell her that he was going to do any of that. He didn't ask for her opinion. And so Elsie's kind of blindsided by this gesture that her fiance has made and realizes that she doesn't want to marry him. So the engagement gets broken. The honeymoon, however, is non-refundable. So her fiance tells her, why don't you go ahead on the honeymoon? And while she feels bad about it, she goes ahead and does that and takes Ginny with her. And so I believe this is going to be a romance between the two of them eventually, and the exploration of feelings while they're on this honeymoon together. But so far, I'm really enjoying it. I finished chapter 9 last night, and it's fun so far. They've just kind of gotten to the honeymoon venue or the location, which I can't remember where it is, because it's not someplace that I personally would vacation, because I'm not one of those lay in the sun, enjoy, tanning and things like that. That's that kind of environment. And I'm definitely not one to enjoy that type of thing. But it's like an all-inclusive, hotel where they even get room service, and they have a bungalow and glass floors so they can see the sea underneath. And just Elsie realized that her fiance did a really, really great job at picking this venue, because it's all inclusive and all of that kind of thing. But they basically just got there, so nothing's really happened in the changing of feelings department. It's just kind of them, Ginny and Elsie, enjoying themselves, finding out about what's available to do and what kind of fun can be had and things like that. So far, really, really fun. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of activities they decide to do. And so, yeah, so far, so good. So this one I am reading on my ebook, and so it's kind of my nighttime read. And then the book that I started today for my audiobook was Battle of the Bookstores by Brady. So this one follows two bookstore owners. One specializes in literary fiction and nonfiction books, and the other specializes in romance novels. And the area is being developed. So we have an introduction to our female bookstore owner, who is the owner of the literary fiction and nonfiction bookstore. and she gets called for a meeting with the developer. Well, at that meeting is the other bookstore owner, who is male, and he's the one that owns the bookstore that specializes in romance novels. And they're told that the area doesn't need 2 bookstores, they only need 1. And so the 2 bookstore owners are basically in competition with each other. And it's going to come down to who sells the most books. So, hence Battle of the Bookstores. So, we're basically kind of following both of them. It's dual POV in like their impressions of each other and the types of events each of them have at their bookstores, their clientele, and kind of having an agreement with each other that they won't like try to sabotage each other's events and things like that. It's so far entertaining. I will say that if you remember what I had said about Highland Heart's Holiday Bookshop, about how my first impression of the male character there was not good because he basically doesn't spend very much time with the female character and already has a visualization of her sexually. It kind of happened in here too. So it didn't happen like with the swiftness that it happened in Highland Hearts, but this guy has basically appreciated, I would say, our female character's appearance since he's kind of seen her around. So he's known of her for a bit, but he hasn't ever like approached her, kind of because he's kind of shy. And so for him to have that type of like visualization after actually talking to her for the first time, I was just like, are we going there again? Really? In any case, I'm so far enjoying it. There's been some really funny and hilarious conversation about the types of romance novels the clientele at the romance bookstore are reading, and the event that he held in the last couple chapters, and kind of explaining to the female bookstore owner what a particular thing that happens in the Omegaverse type books is. And so I am really enjoying what I've listened to so far. I'm about 7 chapters in. I think I finished chapter 7 at lunch. I think it said I was 20% done. The romance bookstore was having an event, and it was a knitting event. And so, I'm a knitter. And so I really enjoyed that they were having that type of event at the bookstore. But yeah, speaking of knitting, I am wearing a handmade sweater. I hand knit this with a yarn advent calendar in 2024. This is my Rainbow Ring by Stephen West, knit with the yarn advent calendar from Fangirl Fibers in the Residence of the Haunted Mansion advent calendar, which was a 31-day advent. And so I was able to use all of the colors, not in the sleeve, but in the body. And so, yeah, so far I'm really enjoying both books. Definitely not what I intended to read for this vlog, though, but I am still being very entertained by these 2 selections. And so, yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have for you right now. So I'll check back in with you later. So I finished my best friend's honeymoon, and I'll say that there were parts of it that I enjoyed, and there were parts of it that I didn't think were necessary, or as much of it was necessary. So I really enjoyed like the beginning part of the story, a little bit past where I came in to talk to you about the book and what it was about earlier. And then I appreciated the ending of the story. But in the middle, when they're like on the honeymoon, it had too much spicy scenes. Like, it would have been much better, and it probably would have made the book much shorter if some of those scenes were fade to black. But it just seemed like after they slept together for the first time, there was scene upon scene upon scene upon scene. And it's just like, why do we need to see all of this? I don't understand. It didn't add anything to the story for me. And once all of that was over and we're getting towards the end of the honeymoon, we start to have the third act, like conflict scene, and with the conflict that came up and how it was like dealt with within the story, I did not care for how it came about. I don't even think that there was a reason for there to have been a conflict because of that. It just seemed like a really petty issue, and it made me dislike Elsie even more than I had already kind of not really liked her from the get-go. I enjoyed Ginny throughout the story. I feel like if the story was completely from their perspective, it would have made a much better story for me. But because this is dual POV and we were getting scenes from both Ginny and Elsie, I just thought Elsie was very whiny. And even though we kind of find out what's going on with her and her feelings and things that had happened to her when she was growing up and why she made certain decisions, I still didn't like her very much. And especially once that conflict scene came about, I even more was like, Ginny deserves better. I didn't like her very much and how she was handling it. Again, I thought she was very whiny about it. And there were a couple of other things too that came about after the big conflict scene where several other characters were kind of brought in, and I don't really understand why. Like, it seemed like just more characters to have to remember, and I get that they were brought in to like complete the picture of the journey that our two characters are going on after this conflict and how things kind of work out the way they did for the end of the story. But it was kind of, I don't know. It didn't like give anything to me, at least as far as what had happened in Ginny's perspective. Like, I get what happened in Elsie's, and I do kind of feel like all of that had happened in her perspective was needed, but most of the characters that were kind of added to the roster were added in Ginny's POV. And while it does kind of relate to what's going on, it just was kind of strange that we brought in all of these characters. And I'm not sure, maybe I just didn't quite grasp the whole picture of what was going on. I feel like it definitely had to do with Ginny kind of deciding what they wanted to do with their life going forward and things like that, like a bigger picture kind of path. But I think there were better ways to do that without having to add more people to the roster, if you know what I mean. Like, when it first started out, I thought, this is really great. We're getting the picture. Like, there was only one other character, and it was a person that's instrumental to Ginny's life. And so you can kind of see, like, the wheels turning, if you know what I mean, for them to try to figure out what they want to do. And I don't know. It would have been fine if it was just kind of like going down that kind of same line. But then something else comes up that is kind of in correlation to what Ginny decides they want to do. And it brings in, 2, 3, 4 people. So yeah, I don't know. This one definitely did not work for me as well as Mistakes Were Made, which was the other book that I read by this author, like I had mentioned before. It was fine. I do feel like the story does show a broad picture of Ginny and Elsie's relationship throughout the time that they've known each other, because we do get those flashbacks to when they were growing up, and they, all of the times that they've had together as best friends, the experiences that they've been through with each other and apart from each other and things like that. And I just feel like maybe the story just wasn't executed the best way it could have been for my preferences, I guess. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I'll probably read something else by this author in the future, because like I said, I did really enjoy Mistakes Were Made, even though, that one also had its problems. That story worked so much better for me than this particular one did. So unfortunately, not as good as I was hoping. So yeah, this one is definitely really, really spicy in the middle. So if you're not into that, I would say definitely give this one a skip, or be prepared to flip a lot of pages in between if you're the type of person that would be able to read and then skip through the spicy stuff. I ended up doing that myself because it was just way too much. And so, yeah, I have one more book that I am in the middle of right now, and that is Battle of the Bookstores. As I mentioned, I am almost done with that. So I should be back shortly to tell you my thoughts on that one. But I will tell you right now, I'm about 80% done with this one. And this one is working out much better for me. I really enjoy this one because it's like a book for people who love books. Because you're dealing with the 2 bookshop keepers, and there's constant mentions of books that you probably have heard about. Now, like I said, one of our bookshop owners does own a literary fiction, and the other is, or literary fiction and nonfiction, and the other is all types of romance. And so there are definite titles that I've heard people talk about on BookTube, but I haven't necessarily read them. So I do feel like I'm kind of missing a little bit because I don't know those stories, even though I've heard of the titles. And especially with the literary fiction, I've heard the titles, but I would never read them because I am not a literary fiction girly. And so, yeah, I feel like because I'm not in the know, about some of the books that are being name dropped and talked about, I might be missing some references here and there, but I don't feel like it's impacting my enjoyment of this book, if you know what I mean. I enjoy the kind of banter that our characters are having even more now. In the beginning, it was kind of rocky for me because they're I wouldn't say they're enemies, because they both kind of have an appreciation for each other as far as appearances go. Probably one more than the other based on what's said, like in the beginning. But they're immediately pitted against each other, right? So they're kind of, at odds. And just kind of the things that were going on, the shenanigans. It was a little bit over the top for me. But now where I am in the story, they're talking like pretty regularly, and I much enjoy their banter now and where the relationship is now. Though I think as I've been listening to this one, I kind of realized that I don't necessarily appreciate when I am reading a book that has a male perspective. I think I had mentioned in the previous clip that there is a point close to the beginning where we're in the male POV and he like has this vision of her in bed in a sexual position. And I'm just like, why? Why are we doing this? And I don't know. It kind of made me think about what I don't like enjoy about books. Because this wasn't the only book that I've read recently that has had something like that. And I feel like it's only become something that I've noticed recently because I don't read a lot of romance novels, at least not up until this point. I've been dabbling a little bit more and more. And I feel like, especially this month in January, I am probably reading the most amount of romance novels that I have read in years because of the way the library holds worked out and the curveballs that the year has already thrown me with the wait times not being what they're supposed to be. But I think in looking at what I normally read, like just in general, not necessarily by genre, but just in general, I don't read a lot of books that are from a male perspective or that include a male main character or that are written by men. And I've kind of realized that it's because I don't enjoy some of the perspective, some of the commentary, some of the way that things are described. And so I think that's probably why this whole thing with how these men are looking at these women in a sexual kind of vision in their head after just like meeting them is really bothering me because I don't understand. Like, and maybe it's just me. I don't get it. I don't get it. And I don't think it's something that's relevant. It's definitely something that didn't need to be in the book. Whether or not it happens in real life, it's not something that I personally appreciate hearing about or reading about. And so, yeah, I think that's why it really bothered me when I had read a book earlier in this vlog, and then I have another book here that it's happening again. And so, yeah. But that's to say, it only happened that one time in this book, whereas in the other book, it happened twice. And thankfully, in this book, it happened pretty early. And so none of that has happened since. There's definitely, like, descriptions of him looking at her and noticing, things about her body. But it's not like, visualizing someone in bed, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I don't know. In any case, I am enjoying what is happening right now in the book, and it should be done relatively soon. This one's going by pretty quick. And so I have a feeling this one is going to be much better than the previous book that I just mentioned to you. So we'll see. But so far, really enjoying it. Definitely has that kind of You Got Mail kind of feel in it as well, which is interesting. And so, yeah, enjoying this one quite a bit. And I should be back relatively soon to let you know what I think on that. We'll see how long it takes me, though, because I do have meetings every day this week, or most of the days this week. For the next couple of days, I've got more meetings. I had one today. And so, yeah, it just depends on how much time I actually have. But hopefully it won't take me the rest of the week to read that one. And I'll be back with you soon to let you know my final thoughts on Battle of the Bookstores. So I finished Battle of the Bookstores. I really enjoyed this one. It definitely was fun. It was fun. It's definitely one of those books that is like for readers, because throughout the story you do get books mentioned that will probably age this book in the future, because some of the titles that are dropped are definitely things that are very popular right now. And so, yeah, I will say that of the titles that were mentioned, I haven't read most of them. I have heard of most of them, though, from just watching other people's like vlogs and reviews and things on BookTube, but I haven't actually read them myself. And truthfully, because like one of our bookstore owners is specializing in literary fiction and nonfiction, that's not something that I normally dabble in or really have any interest in. So I don't foresee myself actually reading any of those titles. And then you've got the romance bookstore, right? And I'm slowly dipping my toe into reading more. I feel like this month is definitely one of those like rare type of reading months for me, because I am reading quite a bit of romance, and it's unusual for me to read this amount, especially back to back to back. But that's just the way that the library holds came in that I was unexpecting. And so, yeah, I am glad that I did enjoy this one, even with, you know, the things that were going on that I had issue with from the male perspective that really only stayed in the beginning. I did enjoy like how everything went down towards the end. There is a kind of problematic parent in this story that, you know, did definitely get on my nerves. And truthfully, I don't even know like why that parent was mentioned, because I don't feel like it gave anything to the story, unless it was purposely put there for something that happens towards the end of the book. But other than that, I enjoyed most everything else about this book, and I'm going to give it 4 stars. Really, really looking forward to seeing what else this duo of authors comes out with. I believe when I looked, there is another book that's about books, or that features other books maybe in their backlog, and so I would be interested in reading that one. I do think it's a holiday book though, so maybe I'll put it on the radar for Christmas in July reading. But really, really enjoyed this one, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. So that's pretty much everything that I'm going to have for this particular diary entry as far as reading goes. But because this is the end of the reading section, that means I'm going to do some more Advent openings. And then I do have a little bit of a blind box unopening as well, as we haven't done one of those in a bit. So this is going to be the first blind box opening for 2026. And I'm really excited because I've actually had these for a little bit, and I've just been waiting to like include them in my diary entries. And so let's go ahead and do the Advent calendar openings first. I've got my little packet here with a number 4. And so this again is the Charlie Brown Christmas inspired yarn Advent calendar from Stitchin' with Yarn. And let's see what the inspiration for this color was. So this one is called Peanuts Ice Skating. So let's see what we've got here. Oh, nice icy blue color. I will say on camera, it is looking a little bit more of an ice blue, maybe leaning a little bit purple. But in real life, this definitely leans more turquoise. There are different shades of blue as well. It's very tonal. There's like a periwinkle, and then a true light blue, some sky blue, a little bit more turquoise, brighter turquoise in this area. And then you've got all of those kind of gorgeous like leaves type color with the browns, reds, golds. And so really, really nice. That is gorgeous. So that is my day 4 mini. Again, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that, but I think what I'm going to do is wait until I've opened them all and then kind of line them up and then see what I have. But that is the Yarn Advent Calendar. Very, very happy with that. And then we've got our Nido Advent, which is here. And so we have day 4, which is, I wish I could find these faster. Here is the hamburger one. So we will see what's inside here. Ooh. This is a jelly guitar. So it's a little jelly guitar. It does have a little like hanging thing right there. I don't know. Can you see that right there? So that I could like thread something through and maybe hang it on something. But I fear that if I like did that, it might snap. But this is not, it doesn't feel like solid. It's not like filled with gel like this one from day 2. But it is still the same like squishy material. It's just not filled. There's definitely air inside. So yeah, really, really cute. And so that is what we've got for day 4. I'm just going to go ahead and put this one back in the box for right now. And this one, actually, I keep forgetting. This says air guitar. And literally that's what it is. It's a air guitar. So that's what we got for that one. Let me put this away. And then as far as unboxings, we are going to open these. So these are little Mofu-san figures. Mofu-san is a Japanese cat character, and I've been really taken with them since we've been arcade hopping since last year. We can usually find a Mofu-san to play for in the claw machines when we go, and I have accumulated quite a few. And so, yeah, really, really enjoy the Mofu-san. But I've got these. These are, I believe, little hard figures. And so there are 5 that you can collect. We've got the whale shark, the kind of dinosaur, a penguin, a squid, and an otter. So I've got 3. So let's see what we got here. So will these open well? I think these should be pretty easy to open. Let's see. I probably could have just opened it from the bottom, of course, right? Okay. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Oh, I think, is that the penguin? It's a penguin. Oh, it's much smaller than I thought it was going to be. I thought they'd be about the size of the box, but they're actually quite small. So, very cute. Maybe if I pull it back here. So it is a kind of taupe striped kitty in a penguin costume. So very, very cute. And so that is the first one that I've got. Let's see who we've got in box number 2. Here we go. Oh, this is the otter. Very, very cute as well. This one, I don't know. This one kind of looks like it might be a little bit taller, but probably not. So it's kind of more of a peanut butter color Mofu-san with a little otter hat. So that is cute. Now let me see. Are they? They're relatively the same. So very, very cute. And then I've got one more left. Okay. I really want a whale shark or a dinosaur. But we'll see what we got here. Let's see. Oh, we've got a duplicate. That is another Mofu-san in an otter hat. So, I didn't get a whale shark or a dinosaur. So, maybe we'll get a few more boxes of these if we can still find them. Because like I said, I have been holding on to these for a few months. But that is what we've got. 2 otters and a penguin. Very, very cute. And so, yeah, that is pretty much all that I have for you. Actually, no, that's not correct. Because I told you that I would catch you up on how life was throwing me curveballs. Because this diary entry was definitely full of curveballs. So, I guess we'll start with my kind of job, because you know that I have been trying to move to another department, right? And the transition has not been very easy. And so it's still kind of not solidified yet. I am not like doing actual work for my previous team, but something's going on with another team that we work with, and actually a couple of the members on that team are part of this new department that I'm trying to move to. And so I was asked to fill in for another lady, one of my new team's members, because she's going out on medical leave for surgery, and so she's going to need 6 weeks to recover. And so I'm basically going to be doing what I was doing for my previous team for new people, which, I mean, I'm happy to help, but at the same time, I feel like this transition is not going the way that I would have liked. And I think from what I'm hearing right now, it's because with my specialities, it's going to take a little bit more time to actually get my team full of people with the same specialties to be put together. And so there's kind of also been a little bit of a bump in the road as far as the kind of higher ups in that department that I'm trying to move to. And so things are kind of weird here at the beginning of the year, but yeah, I'm definitely not kind of doing work per se for my previous team, but I'm also not quite on my new team, and there's going to be like a side trip before I actually get there. So a little bit weird, not what I expected, but again, just happy to help out, and it is moving in a direction. So I guess I can be happy that there's actual progress there, right? And then as far as like other things going on in my life, I didn't tell you guys that my mom was hospitalized right before Christmas. And with that, she had an infection in her leg. And so everything's fine now, but she's had some doctor's appointments and therefore has had medical leave because of said doctor appointments, and they want to make sure that everything's healing nicely. And with my mom's other health conditions, you know, things were a little bit questionable there. And so she had reported that, you know, she had she had a doctor's note saying that she needed to not be working for another couple weeks because of the medical issues. And her boss, I'm going to say this the way that's harshest, fired her. And that's not allowed. Like, you can't fire people for medical issues. That's kind of on the discrimination side. And so things have been happening with that. I'm kind of going through the gambit of emotions because it was such a wrong thing that happened, but at the same time there have been steps that have been made that looks like she's probably going to get her job back, which at this point I don't know how that's all going to work. It's going to take some time to actually do that, but I'm also kind of wary because, you know, there's always retribution, right? They might just want to get rid of her and try to find any other way to do it. And so with that being said, I am a little bit miffed with how things went down. And her supervisor who did that, and the company that she works for in general. And yeah, it's definitely going to change how we approach some of my spending in this next year, because I did do a lot of spending with that company, because obviously my mom got a great discount there. But great discount doesn't override how I feel. You know what I mean? About what went down and how it happened. So we're just kind of in limbo with that at the moment. So yeah, just lots of curveballs this year. I will say, of the curveballs that was thrown, this one with my reads was probably the least problematic curveball. Other than that, you know, everything else is fine. You know, I am definitely working less. So that was one of the biggest things that kind of prompted me to move departments. So in that aspect, I can't complain. And so, yeah, that's pretty much everything that's going on with me right now. Kind of uneasy, kind of not feeling settled in my like kind of life, I guess. But it'll iron itself out, I'm sure. But yeah, with that being said, I think that's everything that I've got for you now. So let me know down in the comments below if you've read any of the books that I read in this diary entry and what you thought of them. Have you read any other books by any of these authors? I would be really interested to know. And if nothing else, you'd just like to let me know that you were here. If you could leave me a cat or penguin emoji for the Mofu-san that I just unboxed, that would be greatly appreciated and would really help me out. And that will do it for me today. So I hope you're all doing great. I hope you're all safe and healthy. And until next time, take care and smile always. Bye.